Two music legends, both worshipped by millions, both on the edge of triumphant comebacks, and yet both swallowed by dark secrets Hollywood never wanted you to know. What really destroyed Del Shannon and Arthur Lee? Was it fading fame, ruthless business deals, or something far more sinister lurking beneath their glittering careers? One was hailed as a pioneer of rock, only to be brought down by a tiny pill that triggered a deadly spiral. The other, once called a genius ahead of his time, found himself locked away for a crime he insisted he didn't commit, while his greatest masterpiece gathered dust. And just when both seemed ready to rise again, fate delivered its cruelest twist yet. But why were their final days filled with so much chaos and unanswered questions? Stay with me, because the truth will leave you stunned. Then there's Jimi Hendrix, whose guitar solos shattered conventions and still inspire millions today. Imagine earning $50,000 per sold-out show in 1970, an astronomical sum for a guitarist barely 30 years old, and finding only 20 grand in your bank account when you die. It's almost unthinkable. But for Hendrix, backroom contracts and shadowy managers funneled his earnings into offshore vaults he could never touch. In 1965, before a single fan knew his name, he signed a deal that granted him exactly $1 for every recording he ever made. $1. That $1 contract, brokered by Ed Chalpin, triggered endless lawsuits once his star exploded. Then Michael Jeffrey stepped in as manager, and the money vanished like mist, siphoned into secret accounts linked to whispered mafia ties. Hook your attention here. Jimi played the Monterey Pop Festival, set his guitar ablaze, and rewrote rock history in a single night. Yet the next morning, he was drowning in demands for unpaid taxes, hotel bills, and legal fees. The relentless touring grind crushed him, his body begging for rest, as the road's pulse hammered day and night. Trying to escape Jeffrey's grip was like fighting quicksand. Every lawsuit dragged him deeper, and cutting ties seemed impossible. Both Brian and Jimi chased fame with the ferocity of men possessed, yet neither reaped the fortune their genius merited. Their past glories, Brian's raw blues edge and Jimi's psychedelic pyrotechnics, seem like distant dreams when measured against their final days. Hollowed out, isolated, and financially shackled. Their stories starkly contrast with today's icons who negotiate multi-million-dollar advances, own luxury dockside villas, and blaze across private jets between red carpet galas. It raises the question, how did pioneers with chart-topping hits and arena-filling tours end up penniless? Digging deeper, you uncover wider industry rot. In Brian's era, the UK's top tax rate hit a brutal 93% under Harold Wilson's government, forcing the Stones into exile to keep a sliver of earnings. Managers wielded unchecked power, doling out allowances to band members while pocketing production fees, tour revenues, and publishing rights. If you needed cash, you applied through the gatekeepers, whether you were a founding member or a last-minute hire. Brian reportedly earned only a tenth of Jagger and Richards, simply because he didn't write the hits. Meanwhile, Jimi's battles with absurdly restrictive contracts left him fighting over pennies from his own creativity. Let's pause for a moment. Here were two visionaries who shaped modern music, yet neither managed their own empires. They were kings of the stage, but paupers in the office. It's a paradox that should shock every fan who cherishes their songs. What lessons can we draw? First, ownership matters more than fame. Songwriters collect royalties. Session contributors often collect scraps. Second, legal savvy is as vital as stage presence. Had Brian and Jimi demanded control over publishing or hired sharp-edged advisors early on, Their legacies might have funded their families instead of funeral costs. Beyond the financial missteps, there's a human story of ambition, betrayal, and tragedy. Brian's charisma once lit up London's underground scene. By the end, he was estranged from the band he built. Jimmy's virtuosity turned him into a global idol. By the end, he was worn thin by endless travel and legal wrangling. Both men were propelled by passion, but undermined by an industry that prized their creativity more than their well-being. Imagine Brian's earlier years influencing Evil and Clapton with each soulful bend of his strings, versus the man isolated in Sussex, pleading for his own income. Picture Jimmy's bedroom in Seattle, a teenager teaching himself Hendrix's licks, contrasted with the star in London, sinking under waves of debt he never saw coming. Their journeys highlight a cruel truth. Genius doesn't guarantee security. As we remember these icons, let their stories ignite your curiosity. How do today's stars navigate contracts and taxes? Who really controls their royalties? And most importantly, what safeguards will ensure that the next Brian or Jimmy never fades into financial oblivion? Their legacies endure in vinyl grooves and digital streams, but their cautionary tales still echo. Fortune favors the informed just as much as the talented. He never saw a way out. Maybe he'd already convinced himself there wasn't one. Experts today call it learned helplessness, but back then, no one knew how deep he'd sunk. And when he was gone, Jimi Hendrix left behind more than just music. He left behind chaos, no will, no instructions, just a fortune tangled in family feuds. At the time of his passing, his estate was estimated between $66 million and $80 million. It should have secured his legacy, but instead, it ignited a bitter war. His father, Al Hendrix, took control, but when Al passed in 2002, the fortune took an unexpected turn. He handed everything to his adopted stepdaughter, Janie, completely cutting out Jimmy's real brother, Leon. That betrayal shattered the family. Leon felt robbed, publicly accusing Janie of manipulating their father. He fought in court again and again and lost every time. And here's the kicker. While Leon scrambled to survive, Janie turned the Hendrix name into a powerhouse brand. Fast forward to 2024, and the Hendrix estate isn't just surviving, it's thriving. Valued at over $175 million today, it raked in a cool $6.6 million just this year alone. Under Janie's tight control, Experience Hendrix LLC has dropped new albums, rolled out merchandise lines, signed licensing deals, and even reintroduced Jimmy's music to new generations. That iconic white Stratocaster he shredded at Woodstock? Microsoft's Paul Allen scooped it up for $2 million back in 2000. Today, it's worth a fortune. But while the estate flourished, Leon's life tells a grimmer story, a tale of lawsuits, locked doors, and dreams fading. A stark reminder that in Hollywood, legacy can be both a blessing and a battlefield. And if you think that's dramatic, wait till you hear what happened to Gregory Coleman. Gregory Coleman's story is the industry's best-kept secret, and its dirtiest shame. Born in 1944, he was a star from the start. Drum major, band leader, playing with greats like Otis Redding and Curtis Mayfield. Gregory had it all. Then came 1969, when his band, the Winstons, dropped Color Him Father, a hit that grabbed a Grammy. But hidden on the B-side was a simple 7-second drum solo on Amen Brother. No one paid attention back then, but those 7 seconds? They would go on to change music history. DJs in the 80s found that crisp break and ran wild. It became the heartbeat of hip-hop, powering tracks from Salt and Pepper to NWA. Then jungle, drum, and bass, breakcore. Entire genres were built on Gregory's rhythm. A beat that echoed in clubs, commercials, stadiums, everywhere. But here's the heartbreak. While the world got rich off his rhythm, Gregory got nothing. By 1968, Cheap Thrills was a smash, blasting hits like Piece of My Heart into rock history. But behind the scenes, the pressure was boiling over. Tensions with her band soared, and Janis made a bold move. She went solo, forming the Cosmic Blues Band to take creative control. But more control meant more weight, more debt, more demons. And while she graced the cover of Rolling Stone, stunned audiences on The Ed Sullivan Show, and even received lavish gifts like a lynx coat from Southern Comfort, her drink of choice, the cracks were widening. Her lifestyle spun out, her spending spiraled, and behind the glitter was a woman breaking under the weight of expectation. She leaned into her luxury, exotic clothes, custom jewelry, fast cars, but no amount of excess could quiet the storm. As her career soared, so did her investments. Janis dabbled in real estate, eyeing properties in California's elite enclaves. She was even looking into private insurance deals to shield her growing empire. But the whirlwind pace took a toll. In 1970, while recording Pearl with her new band, Full Tilt Boogie, there were glimmers of hope. A fresh start, maybe. But it was all cut short that October. Gone too soon, leaving fans stunned and an industry scrambling to honor her memory. And while her estate would later balloon in value, with posthumous releases, licensing deals, and tribute merchandise, Janis never lived to see the fortune her voice built. If there's a financial lesson lurking behind these tragic tales, it's this: talent alone won't protect your legacy. Whether it's Jimmy's estate battles, Gregory's stolen beat, or Janis's whirlwind rise and crash, the same truth rings out. Control your business, or someone else will. From managing copyrights, locking in ironclad contracts, to diversifying with real estate, watches, and investments, the stars who survived, like Paul McCartney or Jay-Z, did so because they learned early. Protect the brand. Insure the assets. Build wealth that outlives the fame. And for every new artist stepping into the spotlight today, these stories whisper a warning. Success is fleeting, but strategy, that's what makes a legacy last. And while Janis's name soared in death, Skip Spence's story slipped deeper into the shadows. Born in Windsor, Canada, in 1946, Skip wasn't supposed to be famous. He wasn't even a drummer until Jefferson Airplane shoved sticks in his hands and told him to play. And he did, with raw, chaotic magic that only a soul like his could conjure. But just as fast as he appeared, Skip vanished. Some say he was fired. Others say he simply walked away, restless and searching. It was one night watching Quicksilver Messenger service that flipped a switch inside him. Skip picked up his guitar again, and Moby Grape was born. Their sound wasn't just fresh, it was electric, tearing through the San Francisco scene, sharing stages with giants like Janis, Hendrix, and Neil Young. For a flicker of time, it felt like Moby Grape might rule the rock world. But here's the gut punch. By 1968, the dream was unraveling. Skip spiraled in New York, isolated and sinking deep into LSD trips. And then came the night that would mark his fall. He disappeared with a woman the band later whispered about like a curse. When Skip returned, he was broken. He believed he was the Antichrist. In a terrifying haze, he grabbed a fire axe and attacked his bandmate's hotel door. Not out of rage, but because he thought ending him would save him. It landed Skip in Bellevue Hospital, diagnosed with schizophrenia, pumped with heavy meds, and locked away. But even in that abyss, a strange beauty flickered. Inside those hospital walls, Skip wrote songs, jagged, fragile, and heart-wrenching. Columbia Records, still believing in his genius, gave him a shot. Alone in a Nashville studio in just 9 feverish days, he recorded Ore, playing every instrument himself. It was raw brilliance, but no one bought it. The album tanked, pulled from shelves in under a year. Skip's flame dimmed. He fell harder. Heroin, cocaine, overdose so severe they tagged his toe and left him in a morgue. But then, in a real-life resurrection, Skip sat up and asked for water. Yes, it happened. He tried to claw back, joining bands in the 70s, but that wild spark never fully returned. Decades passed. Skip became a ghost in his own life, drifting between shelters, hospitals, and cheap motels in Santa Cruz and San Jose. Yet, Moby Grape never let go. They funneled him royalties, checked in when they could, a fragile lifeline. By the 90s, a tiny ember rekindled when he joined a music therapy program. In 1996, for one bittersweet night, Skip stood on stage in Santa Cruz, leading Moby Grape, his voice trembling but defiant as he sang Sailing.